What happened in Buffalo is horrifying. A man opened fire in a grocery store, killing 10 people in the deadliest mass shooting of this year. Maybe even longer. It's an extreme tragedy. And we wish these things wouldn't happen, but they do. But the issue here isn't the mass shooting. And as much as many people on the left are going to claim that it's the case, the establishment media is going to say psychotic things. They're just lying. The Rolling Stone published this thriller. The Buffalo shooter isn't a lone wolf. He's a mainstream Republican. The right-wing extremists who control the modern GOP are all gripped by a racist delusion. The shooter is just the latest to act on it. It's a lie. The man in question was just a crazy person. Much like what happened in Waukesha, this guy was a crazy person. Now, do both of these men, have they expressed certain political leanings? Absolutely. But in the end, I just say, look, man, people are crazy. To do something like this, you have to be crazy. This guy in Buffalo did nothing impactful towards any kind of ideology. His brain is just broken. Anyone who's claiming to want any kind of political change or victory, certainly this is the opposite of what someone would do. Completely destroy any kind of cause you might have. No. These people are crazy. They're crazy. And people tell me, when I deal with death threats and violence and things like that, they say, oh, the far left. And I'm like, I'm not worried about the far left. I'm worried about the crazy people, the people who are not well in their heads. They need help. We want to help them. Now, there's a few things to point out. First, people can be motivated by politics. I believe this man was motivated by political causes. I believe the guy in Waukesha, a black man who espoused black nationalist views on social media, who ran over a bunch of white people, I also believe he was racially motivated. It made no sense otherwise. I mean, I suppose you can call it a assumption. The left and the mainstream media, of course, are saying it's a dubious connection. Whatever. We can only make our assumptions based on what we see and our personal perspective. I'm not swayed by arguments from the laptop class. Now, when it comes to this guy in Buffalo, he wasn't a Republican. In fact, he considered himself to be an authoritarian leftist, moderate left-leaning authoritarian, but he was a racial identitarian. He used to be a communist. It's actually in the manifesto he wrote. Why would Rolling Stone write something insane like this? Why would conservatives then come out and just say things like, this is a ridiculous, the dunking. Now, for the conservatives, the libertarians, post-liberals, whatever faction, for those that are criticizing this and calling it a lie, that's good. We should call out the lies. At a certain point, though, the system is completely broken. Here's what I want to tell you. What I want to tell you is, I think we're on the verge of civil war. You hear me say it all the time. I can throw it to our good friend, Stephen Marsh. Now, I mean that one only half jokingly, because normally when I say our good friend, it's a reference to someone who's not, someone who likes the show. But Stephen came on the show and he made important arguments that I agree with and actually will use, because I think his research on civil war is good, but his perspective on news and his sourcing is bad. So here we have a story. Before I get, Stephen Marsh is talking about civil war, and I'm going to read to you what he says, but I want to build up and explain to you where we are right now in this escalation. A leftist just committed a violent attack. The media is calling him right wing. A professed leftist just committed a racist attack, and the media is calling him right wing. Civil war, man. What do you expect from someone like me when I'm reading this, when I say it over and over and over again? You have two tribal factions that hate each other. Maybe many, I'm not saying every single person. I'm saying they talk bad about each other. They won't tolerate each other. When a guy releases a manifesto outright saying he falls in the, I'm showing you the source right here, mild, moderate, authoritarian left category and populist. And the media says right wing. Last week on Timcast IRL, Ian was saying that, he watches these left-wing commentators and they say the exact same thing we say about them, about us. It's just, we say they're wrong, they're lying, they're evil. They say they're wrong, they're lying, they're evil. And I said, Ian, yes, but we're right. And he goes, oh, okay, yeah, we're right. But they're saying, If you don't have the facts, if you don't have the sourcing, I can understand why someone would believe that both sides are just angry at each other. They are, but we are right. Now, right and left are meaningless. You have to, what does it really mean? Because they're used for different things. Some people would say Tim Pool's right wing. And what are they referring to? Economic policy and abortion issues? I'm pro-choice. Say it a million times. People get mad at me for it on the right. I disagree with the Democrats' version of choice. So let me just say, I think abortion is wrong. I think it should be the woman's discretion within the first trimester. And then life rights come into play at viability. And I'm open to moral arguments to ask these questions about how we properly deal with these rights. Pro-choice today just basically means, I guess, the way they've used it, abortion up to 9 months. And we'll get into that because I think this is the strong moral issue leading to a civil war. There are other issues, of course. So here's the issue. The left believed the Covington kid lie. They did not attack this Native American man. Jussie Smollett, they believed it. They all did these PSAs. The Big Bang Theory took a set picture, a lie. Russiagate, a lie for years. They just believe every lie. Rolling Stone comes out with a lie. A right-wing extremist. He's a mainstream Republican. I'm pretty sure mainstream Republicans aren't former communist authoritarian leftists. I mean, that's really what it is. In this response, Bang Switch Actuator said, I'm not defending the GOP, I'm an anarchist, but you clowns are lying. And quite frankly, this type of gaslighting exactly what got Trump elected in the first place. Highlighting what this man who committed the crime wrote, that he was deep into communist ideology. Ask anyone from 15 to 18. He consistently moved farther to the right, but he says he would fall mild, moderate, authoritarian left category. So I'll explain to you how this makes sense. But he's racist. You say racists are only right wing. No, he's everything I've been warning about. Not just me, other people. But I say on my show, when you take the authoritarian ideology of the left and apply it to a young white man, you get racist white identitarianism with a left-wing economic bent. Duh. The media will lie to you about it. Now, there's questions of what left and right really mean. That's why I don't care to use the terms. Okay? Now, he says he's of the left. What does that mean? Economically? Progressive? Tradition? You can be racist and pro-LGBTQ. How about that? What they're saying is that anybody who at any point ever deviates from the left-wing tribal ideology, it makes you right-wing. You can be pro-choice, pro-universal healthcare, pro-gay marriage, pro-gay rights, and say something like, but we shouldn't be giving top surgery to minors, and say, right-wing transphobe. Instantly, you're right-wing. That's the game they play. That's why I say civil war. Because if even people who agree with their identitarian ideology, critical race theory, say they do, but they do one thing that's outside of the norm, boom, you're right-wing. Now, this guy, it's not just one thing. This guy did something very, very horrifying and awful. How do you deal with this? I don't know how you de-radicalize when the media keeps pumping out these lies. Just over and over and over. And they're saying, Tucker Carlson radicalized him. Tucker Carlson did? A pro-liberty, personal responsibility conservative? Now, don't get me wrong. Tucker Carlson has talked about the Great Replacement. Talked about it on his show. The issue is, when you create identitarianism, when you propagate this, the idea that identity should be a determinant factor in politics, did you think that white people would not embrace those ideas as well? So there was a meme going back years where it shows a bunch of people of different races forming groups. There's the black nonprofits, there's Latino nonprofits, there's Asian nonprofits, and they're all saying power to their own race or whatever. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of white people are like, hey, maybe we should. And they're like, oh no, Nazis. That's the meme. The idea is this was predicted, that people on the left would feel threatened. And it doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right, that people of all ideologies will form race-based groups and embrace a world based on race. And you will get racist attacks from people of a left-wing ideological bent. Now, I'm not going to show you this next tweet, This guy, Chip Franklin, says this is what happens when you make Kyle Rittenhouse a hero. Kyle Rittenhouse was defending his neighborhood, was shot at, attacked, threatened with his life, and he defended himself against 3 white people. So there's no point in embracing the psychotic responses. But let me break down for you why it's a lie. All of this is a lie. Just let this be the source. The Anti-Defamation League, Murder and Extremism in the U.S. in 2021. Don't worry, I got 2022 as well, but we're only into May. They say, in 2021, domestic extremists killed 29 people. 29 people. In the past 5 years, it ranged from 45 to 78. So 29 people last year. 19 separate incidents. That's crazy. The 2021 murder totals were low, primarily because no high casualty shooting sprees occurred last year. Such sprees are the main contributor to high murder rates. That's right. They say 2 of the killings in 2021 were committed by black nationalists and 1 Islamist extremist, the latter being the first since 2018. 26 of 29 were committed by right-wing extremists. I'll accept those claims on politics. I will point out that the ADL has a weird definition of what right-wing is. Right-wing can be sovereign citizen. Right-wing can be white supremacist. Right-wing can be just typical conservative. Right-wing and anarchist. Weirdly, black nationalists are considered left-wing. Even if they have right-wing ideology, it makes no sense. But I'll give them that. Fine. 29 domestic extremist killings. According to Stephen Marsh, who I mentioned earlier in the segment, 70 killings per year. I could be wrong, Stephen. If I'm getting your number wrong, I apologize. I'll seek to correct. But my understanding was he said, when 70 people are dying to extremists every year, you have civil strife, which is a precursor to civil war. Well, we did not have that in the year prior. Maybe my numbers are wrong, and maybe it was 20 or something. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. But let me tell you something. In Chicago alone, 2021 was the deadliest year in a quarter century. According to the department, 2021 ended with 797 homicides. 2021, 700. There were 3,561 shooting incidents. 3,561 shootings with 797 dead. How many of them were mass shootings? Quite a bit. I know it's not a hard number. But when you have, and ladies and gentlemen, let me see if I can pull this up. Actually, let me pull this up right here. On Saturday, May 14th, multiple arrests in downtown shootings in Milwaukee. 17 people were injured in a mass shooting. Why aren't we talking about this mass shooting? Why? This is from 2 days ago. 17 people in a mass shooting. Why not? Well, 17 injuries. I believe the number is 17. They weren't killed. And so I can understand why killings make the list and make the news. So let me show you. Mass shootings in 2020 from the Gun Violence Archive. And I'm pro 2A. But I want to show you how the media is lying. We had 2 incidents. One on the 13th and one on the 14th. In Buffalo, you had 10 people killed, 3 people injured. It's horrifying. It's the worst of the worst. I mean, it's horrifying. The day prior, no one cared that we had 17 people injured. Now, I understand why you might say the 10 people being killed is why the story's bigger. But why not on May 13th, when the story happened, there were not headlines saying 17 injured in mass shooting event. And then the next day, another one. Shouldn't they both have made it to the news cycle, one before the other? If you want to argue that 10 people died in Buffalo, and that's why the story is the top headline today, I agree. But why did we say nothing on the 13th about the 17 people killed in Milwaukee? Because it is politics. Civil war. That's all I can say. Not that this is a symptom of, but perhaps a precursor to. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I am. But I've talked about what's been happening for the past few years, and it has escalated. The Civil War period of the United States technically took decades. The war itself was 4 years. But 10 years before the Civil War, you had people screaming at each other. You had violence. You had fighting. People were at each other's throats. I hope I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just seeing too much and I can't see the forest. I can't see I can't make the prediction. I'll just keep it simple. We had a mass shooting in North Carolina just yesterday. 7 people were injured. Again, okay, I get it. 10 people were killed on the 14th, and that's why we're not talking about the 7 injuries. Okay. I don't believe it. Because I'll do this. We will show the list starting with the deadliest. May 14th, the deadliest of 2022. 10 people killed. Again, I wish these things didn't happen. This person who committed this act is deranged. They're evil. They should be locked up. On February 5th in Texas, 6 people were killed and 2 people were injured. No major national story. On January 23rd in Milwaukee, 6 people were killed. No major news story. On April 3rd, 6 people were killed and 12 were injured in California. No major story. And April 20th, 2020, on April 20th this year in Minnesota, 5 people were killed in a mass shooting. No breaking news. No news cycle. No one cared. When the news break out, I'm getting people tweeting at me like, why won't you talk about what happened, Tim? Because you've got a guy who was authoritarian left communist lunatic who shot and killed people. Yeah, arrest him. Because now we're going to see the left and the right pointing at each other. The left, of course, is lying. Mass shootings are all bad. They're all bad. They're always bad. February 28th in California, 5 people killed. April 21st, Arkansas, 4 people killed. January 23rd, California, Inglewood, 4 people killed. April 27th, Mississippi, 4 people killed. Now, I can understand 4 is less than 10. But you mean to tell me that in April 3rd in California, when 6 died and 12 were injured in a mass shooting, nothing. Oh, it was a gang shooting. Gang shooting. It's all manipulation. When they come out and they talk about what happened in Buffalo, and they come out and they say he's a mainstream Republican idea. They're lying. Good. Let them lie. Let them lie. Let's talk about where we're going with civil war. Because Stephen Marsh responded to the story. He said the removal of long-held rights through the manipulation of an antique electoral judicial system, mass murder inspired by mainstream conservative principles. This is what civil strife, the threshold to civil war, looks like. Stephen needs to do his research. He's done research on concepts, ideas, and numbers, and I can respect that. But the dude just doesn't actually listen to the arguments and understand what's actually happening in this country. He's Canadian, so I forgive him on that point. The removal of long-held rights. Did you know that people in the South claimed they had the right to own slaves? And the government was trying to take that away from them. Good, they should have. That's why, partly why, a war erupted. Because the South thought they had a right to own people, and they don't. And the North said, you don't. And there's many reasons for the Civil War. The slavery being the biggest, the catalyst, but there were many, many issues. Many people just hated each other. I view abortion similarly. The removal of long-held rights. I'm assuming he's referring to Roe v. Wade. I said, except the moral question of life rights are the same. Republicans want to extend life rights to babies. Democrats want to extend termination up to 9 months. Imagine arguing the North was taking away a right to slavery. That's what the South was saying. It doesn't matter what your opinion is on abortion. The argument is, if we are talking about extending life rights, it is absolutely today, as it was back then, the Republicans who are arguing for the extension of life rights. What the left is arguing is that women would have to be, for 9 months, if they have a right to an abortion, that means for 9 months, the women will be restrained. They will lose the ability to be free for 9 months. So here's the question. It's absolutely different from slavery in a lot of ways. There are some similarities, but they're different. Should a woman experience 9 months of providing her body to another life, or should the other life die? It's not so simple. I find myself in the traditionally liberal camp of, in the first trimester, I can understand. And this was what Roe v. Wade originally was. In the first trimester, I can understand the baby can't live. It's dependent upon the woman, and the woman can't be forced by government to provide her body for it. I understand pro-lifers have a different position, but there are difficult questions as it comes to government authority that I face. But I certainly think once the baby is viable, killing the baby makes no sense. Let me show you. According to Merriam-Webster, the definition of abortion: the termination of a pregnancy after, accompanied by, resulting in, or closely followed by the death of the embryo or fetus. There's other definitions such as miscarriage, spontaneous expulsion within the first 12 weeks, the induced expulsion. Abortion typically refers to the termination of the baby. There's no colloquial context in which someone says abortion to reference induced labor and the safe delivery of a baby for which it lives. Abortion typically means the baby is dead. Now, right now, in the text of the Democrats' bill, if we go down to the limitations, they say, let me pull it up. It's right here. Permitted services, that they have a right to abortion without any of the limitations. We get to question 9. A prohibition on abortion after fetal viability when in good faith medical judgment of the treating healthcare provider. Continuation of the pregnancy would pose a risk to the pregnant patient's life or health. So let's break this down from the most charitable to the worst case scenario. This means after fetal viability, the baby can live. Fetal viability means the baby can live on its own. You can abort a baby, meaning ending its life, when the baby is viable, if it would pose a risk to the patient's life or health. Let's slow that down. Here's the best Steelman interpretation. A woman is dying. The doctor says the pregnancy is killing you. Well, in that case, I say we have no choice but to try and save the life of the mother. Hold on there a minute. There's nothing in here saying that the doctor must also make a good faith effort to preserve the life of the baby if viable, in which case abortion, as Merriam-Webster's number one definition refers to, closely following the death of the baby, the fetus or embryo, then even in the best case interpretation of this law, they're not talking about induced labor. So let's slow it down. Health? Now we can get into the harder arguments on Section 9 of this bill. Section 3, paragraph 9. The woman, her health is at risk. So she not her life. Her health is at risk. So this could mean that she might have a medical issue that could cause her issues, but not die. You can kill a baby at 9 months. The baby is 9 months gestated. It can survive on its own. Let's say 8 months. I want to be as steelman as possible. Let's say 6 months. The baby would be able to survive outside the womb. The mother's health is in jeopardy. Why not induce labor? Well, that would inconvenience the mother. Okay. Steelman argument. Inducing labor itself would hurt the mother, risk her life. Cesarean section, C-section. How do you remove the baby at all? The issue is, at the very least, while there are some circumstances I can absolutely say, because I'm not a doctor, where delivery, induced labor or a C-section would kill the mother or hurt the mother, they would perform a late-term abortion where they put the tools inside the woman, kill the baby, and then suck its body parts out. That's a very difficult moral conundrum, but also extraordinarily rare and can be solved by a simple provision. In all instances, an effort must be made to preserve the life of the baby if the baby is viable. That still gives them tremendous leeway to say a C-section would be, cutting the woman over, a surgery to remove the baby would be, would hurt the mother. And so we shouldn't do it. Even in that case, they could argue the surgery itself is harming the mother, so they wouldn't do it. But they don't even have that provision, which is to say, if the baby is viable and must be removed, why kill it? So the question then becomes the moral issues around what's happening today. The Democrats want provisions in which they can terminate a baby at late term. Like the viability is all that matters. Viability means it can live on its own. they can terminate that pregnancy and the baby along with it with no protections. Conservatives don't like that concept. Even Seamus on Timcast IRL, who's staunchly pro-life, said if they are making an attempt to save the life of the mother and in that process the baby dies, that's not abortion. Well, okay. It is, literally. But the point he's making is that the intent should not be to kill the baby. Okay, I agree with that. Which brings me back to Stephen Marsh. These are not mainstream conservative principles. These are not the removal of long-held rights. This is a moral and ethical constitutional question over who is determined, who gets rights. Stephen, if you're of the opinion that a baby at 9 months has no rights, okay, well, therein lies the issue. People in the South felt slaves had no rights. People in the North felt they did. They fought. Stephen, it seems like you don't feel that babies have rights. Well, conservatives feel they do. Seems like fighting will ensue. The person who committed this crime wasn't doing it because of abortion. He was doing it because of identitarianism, which I oppose. I think is wrong. I think identity-based government is bad. There's a meme where it's like every liberal or conservative people of all races, except for white people, think identitarianism to an extent is good, but white conservatives are like, we shouldn't do that, and white liberals are like, white people are bad. I don't come from that camp. I don't come from a white racial background, so I have no interest in identitarianism. I think it's bad for obvious reasons. The preservation of myself and my family, right? I don't want government based on race because I've seen what government based on race is. It's no surprise the people who are arguing for it are all racist. The critical race theorists who want segregation, the lunatics with guns who go and kill other people based on race. I don't want to live in that world. So I wake up and I'm sick of hearing about this. Disingenuous manipulation by the press. They're desperate. This was a very, very awful mass shooting, and my heart goes out to the people their families and all of that. There's a viral video of a guy who was like, we need more people with guns. Security guard had a gun. He couldn't stop him. Need more people. So I don't have all the answers. What I can tell you is they're just trying to manipulate you. There's been so many mass shootings this year they just don't care about. You guys know I come from Chicago too. They're the two memes. I'm mixed race and I come from Chicago. You know how often I dealt with stories like this and nobody cared? When I got shot at, when I'm driving down the street and a guy just points a gun at his car and shoots at me, when a high school fight turned into a guy pulling out a gun, and I'm pro-gun. But criminals are criminals. And so whenever I see stories like this, I'm like, I know that I can pull up the source and there were so many mass shootings you didn't care about. I mean you, as in these mainstream media blue checkies that are lying. How do we solve these problems? I don't have the answers. But I do think we're headed towards a civil war because of stories like this. Mainstream Republican. They want the fight. This guy was not a mainstream Republican, but they're trying to make sure all mainstream Republicans are forced into a corner. So be it, I guess. Pray for peace. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.